What is up, everyone? Welcome to the First Ones to Die podcast. I'm Jonathan. I'm here with Jerome and Alex. What is going on today, people?
Well, you got
How's
to
it going?
direct one. Remember, you got to point out one because we all don't know who you're looking at. I'm doing swell.
I'm doing good, chilling.
Nice. Nice. I bet you're chilling because you had a major victory last week
That's right.
in our trivia match, Battle of the Century. In case you were not here last week, we had an absolute mad game of trivia
Trivia champ.
where
I'm
Jerome
taking
became
it.
the trivia champ through a weird amalgamation of deduction and reasoning in guessing pictures of fountains that really put him over the edge, and his Robin Hood knowledge. So therefore, he won the right to choose the movie that we review today on this very podcast. And the movie that he chose is called Black Dynamite. It is a film from 2009. It's rated R. IMDb describes it as Black Dynamite is the greatest African American action star of the 1970s. When his only brother is killed by the man, it's up to him to find justice. It's an homage to the great Blaxploitation films of the 1970s, and it gets wild. I have some thoughts about this movie.
Oh,
uh,
wait,
I was hoping
Jerome,
you would.
jumping back to the trivia thing real quick, I do want to let my viewers know that that was the first episode my mom liked you more than me, Jerome. She said she laughed harder when you were answering the question. She thought you were very smart, and I'm like, hey, I'm your daughter. Like, what about my compliment that I should be getting every week? So, but you were her favorite that week, Jerome, just to let you know and the
Yeah,
viewers
well,
know.
I appreciate it.
and shout out to Alex's mom.
Yeah, big shout out. Thank you very much
She's her like
for the
YouTube follower.
compliments.
Anyway,
So I want to know, Jerome, why did you decide to have us watch this movie?
Well, there's a couple reasons. Number one, I remember like this is a video that I don't even know if it'll ever come out. Probably not, because we'll have to do commentary because we lost all the audio. But we did a reaction to the something wrong with the Johnsons. Ari Aster's first ever first kind of feature, but not really. It's like 30 minutes. It's a short film.
I'm
Um,
okay with losing that reaction.
and then we had no audio, so we never released this video. And I thought to myself, I was like, what's another thing that's like fun and like dumb and would be like interesting to hear like all our thoughts or whatever to do. And I was like, and not, Black Dynamite is an amazing comedy for me. I love it. I think it's very funny. I think it is really good at parody. And so I was like, I'm curious to see what Alex and Jonathan think about it. Like if they love the comedy, if it works for them, if it doesn't work for them, and if so, if not, or if so, why, and that sort of thing. So I was just curious mostly, based off of just like you guys' reactions to something wrong with the Johnsons. Like it was not what I was used to hearing from like the consensus on the internet. So I was like, they have some like interesting opinions I want to hear about this.
I will say this though, with the Johnsons, that was just horrifying. And we just talked about by like nausea with incest. And then like this was actually more fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why you thought the two
It's more
connected.
just you guys are
It was
very
fun. This was enjoyable.
you have specific tastes, and I wanted to see what you're like based off of that taste. I learned that with the Johnsons, so I was like, I'm curious with your specific taste if you would enjoy this movie.
So like stuff that you don't necessarily have to think about. You can just
Yeah.
watch it and react to it, enjoy. I don't know if you would necessarily enjoy something wrong with the Johnsons. To each their own.
But it is one of those things where it's kind of like at least for me. Granted, I know it's meant to be kind of like a serious horror film, but for me, I
That's
always
not a
take it as
horror
like
film. That's just disturbing.
I take it as like popcorn, like B horror, where it's like this is happening. I guess I don't know.
And
Like,
audience,
I'm
if you
just going.
don't know there's something wrong with the Johnsons, you can watch it right after you finish listening to this episode on YouTube. It's available to stream, so you can know what we're talking about and be horrified.
And
as
it's
well.
also not a horror film. I like horror films. That was just disturbing
I
all
would argue
around.
it's like a psychological horror film. Like it
Like, it's-
plays on your emotions and your mental state a little.
I will say with the Black Dynamite, you are right. It was way out of my territory, at least, because again, previously slated, I do enjoy horror films. I'm not a fan of like Western films or spaghetti westerns, I believe they're called. Which this also pays an homage to back from the 70s when they had that kind of Western black thing going on. So this was really out of my realm, even the bottom tier of it, which was just the Western influence of it, was even out of my realm. So it was enjoyable to watch a movie that was not something I would just go sit down and, watch in normality. So.
Yeah, and I am not familiar with I know the Blaxploitation genre, but I'm not familiar with specific movies. I know, it's part of the culture and everything, but it's well before my time. And I think a lot of people my age would say the same thing.
Well, to get you started, if after this you want to dive in, I would say the first ones to kind of start with are like definitely Shaft, Super Bad.
Shaft.
I love Shaft.
Foxy Brown.
Okay.
Yeah, like those movies are kind of some of the ones to start, even though they're the most popular, but they're the ones that aren't the weirdest, because once you start digging into like Dolomite and stuff, it's when you start hitting like the most ridiculous.
Oh, I remember Dolomite.
stuff.
That's the guy with the lisp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't like that film.
Like it just like Dolomite hits a point where it starts becoming like crazy, and there's a lot of Blaxploitation films like that where stuff happens and you're just like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing now. Okay.
Yeah, and when I first started watching this movie, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is because I had no idea what to expect." You basically just told us, "Okay, this is a movie we're watching. Find it, watch it, and then we'll talk about it." I had no idea what to expect, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is like a tribute to the Blaxploitation movies, because obviously it's made in 2009. Obviously, the people who I'm seeing in it are people who would not look like that in the 70s." And then as I got further along in the movie, I'm like, oh, this is a tribute, homage, and a parody, because it got very whimsical and nonsensical towards the end. So
It did. It was
Yes.
a lot of whimsy at the end where it was just like, oh,
yes.
even orphans are involved now. Okay. Okay, well, let's go down that road.
Yeah.
By the way, before we get too first of all, this movie is
Are you really-
mega old. So
Alex,
for
were
those
you
who
about to
really-
put? Were you about to say? I think I know what you're about to say. Are you going to say the spoiler warning?
Yes, because there's some people that they just get all about it. However, the reality is, if you're worried about us spoiling Black Dynamite at this point, where there's been not only a movie but also an Adult Swim cartoon with 2 seasons, you go somewhere with yourself. All right, like be gone, because like that is ridiculous. All right, we're gonna spoil this movie. We're gonna talk about this movie. All right, this is the most impolite spoiler warning I'm gonna give, because that'd be ridiculous.
I will say this. There were a few things I had to look up myself because I have watched quite a few modern films with a mainly black cast. But the older ones that use, like what we talked about, the corn-fed thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was because I either watched Spanish films or American films.
And they literally reference that in this movie.
Yeah, like
that's where do you think I get that from? I get it from Black Dynamite.
Within like seconds too. I was like, oh, that one I know. So I did have to look up a couple stuff because I am aware of certain stereotypes towards Black people, but this movie really does go for like the ones that I didn't know. So I had to look up, and I'm like, really? That's a stereotype? That's weird, but okay, I guess. I'm like, all right, then let's keep going with that. Like, it took me a second because I'm like, is this really a stereotype they're trying to play? That's a weird stereotype. Some of the stereotypes were just weird to me because I'm like, I wouldn't think about that.
Like
I'm
what?
trying to think of one right now. Because I was just like, oh, my head's like blanking right now. There were just like a few I remember, like when they were still like, oh hell,
Well, okay. While you're thinking of that, I'll tell you my first.
Yeah, because Jonathan, you texted and it was like, no, I
Oh
have a
wait.
lot of thoughts.
Yes. So okay,
Well,
Alex, go
Alex,
ahead.
did you get it?
Um. Well, I knew this one was a stereotype, but I had not thought about it in so many years. I kind of forgot it was a stereotype. The malt liquor thing. They even found a secret formula in malt liquor. That's how he got like when he was in the on the Kung Fu Island.
Mhm.
I remember that part and thinking, why do they keep talking about malt liquor? I had forgotten about that stereotype, so I
Oh,
actually
that
had to
malt
look it up.
liquor is like a big thing.
Yeah, for like the black, and I like had to re-Google it. I was like, oh right, because nobody ever mentions malt liquor anymore. Who brings that up
Oh
anymore?
no, the people still drink it.
No, I know
It's
people
just
still drink it, but
now it's like people like you don't say malt liquor. It's like, hey, you got a 40? Because that's what malt liquors normally came in was a 40-ounce bottle.
maybe that's why I never thought about it. I was like, oh, it's okay, malt liquor. Why are we? That's a weird. Why wouldn't it just be all various of alcohol or like something else? Because it's like okay, tequila for like Mexicans, and just like malt liquor seemed weird. I'm like, yeah, I guess I was thinking 40s. I'm like, why wouldn't they go to with 40s or a specific style of beer?
In
And
the
also, in a lot
1970s, malt liquor was the thing.
that is true too. I have not watched a lot of films from the 70s unless they are horror. And another thing in like hip hop music today too. Like I remember seeing rappers drinking like 40s and malt liquors in old rap music, but now they drink like nicer shit, like
Yeah.
all that stuff. So I guess
The
in
bougie
my
stuff.
mind
I
it
don't know
kind
why I
of
said it like I'm dreaming.
yeah.
Like it was a
Well, because
simpler time.
it was a simpler time when you could just go to 7-Eleven and get malt. Well, like
Ciroc wasn't invented yet. Everyone
yeah.
just drank 40s.
Somebody was asking me, like, why aren't you scared to get the vaccine? I'm like, I drank the original Four Locos that should not have been approved by the FDA. You think the vaccine's going to scare me, really? Whatever they put in Four Locos, that shouldn't have been legal. Now it's really weak.
Okay, so when I first turned this movie on, within about uh, the first 3 minutes, yeah, we get some skin and some sexual activity,
I had
and I
forgotten
had
about
Yeah,
that.
that
my
like
my
hit.
volume on full blast, and I'm like, I couldn't have gotten a warning here, Jerome. You couldn't have
Hey, your
looked out for
parents
me.
probably were like, Jonathan, what the world are you watching?
Oh my god, that was such an aggressive part too. They were loud.
Black Dynamite was tearing it up. I forgot. I honestly forgot. Like, I haven't seen this movie in a while. So I forgot that that's the beginning of the film is like three women just topless, full on sex scene. But that's a
Within the
reference
first
to
3 minutes.
that shot specifically, like how it shot is a reference to I forget which Blaxploitation film, but there's a Blaxploitation film where it's filmed that way, where it's the girl's face. Now, granted, you don't see below like her full chest. It's like from the upper chest and her head to get a better rating at the time. But it's just like it is that type of shot. So it's a reference to that type of film style from back in the day is why it's filmed that way.
Question, Jonathan. Did your
Yes.
parents ever bring it up to you?
No, well, okay. So anyway,
Let's move on. Okay,
yes.
go. Oh my god. I can think a little bit.
But go on.
But also, okay, I have my notes right here. Also, I'm a big Kim Whitley fan, and to see her was awesome. I think she's hilarious. She's only in it for like 0.2 seconds, but it was great to see her as well. And
She's in the show too, in the cartoon they did. In fact,
okay.
all the cast returns for the cartoon.
Really?
Kim Whitley,
Nice.
Tommy Davidson, Byron Mins, and Michael Jai White. They all come back for the cartoon.
Yeah, that was the first thing that I was like noticing. I was like, oh, okay. When I was watching the movie and I would see all the different people who like Arsenio Hall, Kim Whitley, who else? Tommy Davidson. As you guys know, I'm a huge fan of the Proud Family. So to see and hear his voice was very welcomed.
Yeah, I remember the first time I watched Black Dynamite because I think what had happened was I I had heard about I don't think I'd heard about Black Dynamite, really. But then Adult Swim had announced they were doing the cartoon, and this was after Boondocks had like gone off the air. And I was like, oh yeah, another black cartoon. This one's like in the 70s. This looks really cool. And then I watched the featurette on it, and Michael Jai White was in it, and he was talking about like, yeah, ever since we did the movie, like we have fans that have been like looking forward to the cartoon. I was like, movie? There's a movie of this? I gotta see it. And then when I watched the movie, I was like, oh, now I gotta watch the cartoon because this is hilarious, and it's one of the best parody movies ever. And it's so interesting because it was made in 2009 when you had other parody movies like Disaster Movie, Scary Movie, you know, all those movies. And those movies, people are always like, oh, those are my favorite parody movies. It's like, those aren't parody movies though, because a parody, like the early Scary Movie ones are, but the ones after that, when they like just superhero movie and all these other ones, they're not parody movies. They're movies that spend all of their runtime making 1,000 bottom of the barrel reference jokes to every other movie that's not even in the same genre. Versus this is what a parody movie should be. This is in the vein of stuff like Airplane and
I love Airplane.
Naked Gun. And it's just like, this is a movie that stays in its pocket of, look, all of it takes place during the 1970s, but it's a parody of all of the ridiculous factors of the Blaxploitation 1970s films, down to even the continuity errors and stuff. Like my favorite scene is when he's like fighting against Chicago Winds, like a group of people, and then Bullhorn just shows up out of nowhere. He's just there now, and he's just like, I'll take care of this corn-fed fool. And then he just like, and when he smacks that dude and he actually hit him, and he just like, hey man, and then it just cuts and a new actor is there, and he just and it's the act, and like stuff like that is hilarious because in real life, I don't know if there's a movie specifically where it was that like obvious, but that has happened in other Blaxploitation films that are supposed to be taken seriously, that were like a stunt double is put in and it is clearly not the same black person, but they were making movies on a shoestring budget. Like they couldn't afford to do half of the fancy stuff that Hollywood movies could do.
Yeah, like at the end when the man gets his arm cut off and it's clearly a fake arm. He has no blood coming out of his arm. He is clearly not in enough pain for someone who just got their arm chopped off.
I don't know. Your body goes into shock. You don't feel pain. You don't even realize you lost the arm.
Hey, that might be might be a good point as well.
And depending on where you cut the arm, I know this is a real part. Depends on the blood flow too. So there doesn't have to be a lot of blood. They could be more medically correct than all the other films that like to just squirt blood.
But one of the things I also liked about this was obviously the language and the quotes. I wrote some of my favorite down. One of them was, before we beat you like a rented mule, use a corn-fed fool with a lot of muscle mass, but it's time for Bullhorn to get that ass. This meeting's private. How'd you get in? I walked in.
I walked in. I love that joke. It's one where the delivery makes that joke where he's just like, I walked in. I don't. It was nothing special. I literally just came in through the door.
Yeah.
And what's funny is a lot of Blaxploitation movies are like that too, where a dude, he just walks in the door and then people are like, how'd you get in here? He's like, you left the door open. Like I literally just walked through. It wasn't that hard at all.
I also, probably my favorite was at the end when the waitress at the restaurant is saying, okay, we have waffles, but we only have chicken for the meat. And he's like, chicken and waffles. And then the other man is like, that's it. And he runs away.
The running joke about Roscoe's, because you see, like earlier, you see his sign where it says Roscoe's Chili and Donuts, and he's like trying to figure it out. And so when he's like chicken waffles, I love the delivery of that joke because it's like it pays off. It's like, oh, that's how Roscoe's made Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. The franchise started here in Black Dynamite. My favorite is always that. N- uh, my favorite two actually is the nurse scene when he's with the nurse and he's like, "Really, Black Dynamite, man? What'd you expect? He brought her in there with them, brought her in here with them titties. Like, what'd you expect to happen?" That one makes me laugh every time, and the other one is, "Ha! I threw that before I walked in the room." He kicks him in the face.
I think one of my favorite lines comes from Chocolate Giddy Up. I believe who said it.
Ah,
I'm spending more bail money than I'm getting tail money.
tail money. Chocolate is like, who is that supposed to be? Oh, that's Black Dynamite. I ain't ask you. He's a big part of the show too. He returns. In fact, like they get almost everybody for the cartoon. And Chocolate Giddy Up, it gets a lot more time in the cartoon. If you want to watch it, it's on HBO Max.
I think
Under the
I
Adult
saw
Swim
that.
section.
One,
I
the name needs more time on screen. Chocolate Giddy Up.
Yeah, I agree.
Chocolate Giddy Up. Yeah,
I
Giddy Up's fun.
I looked at the show before I looked at the movie because the movie is hard to find on well, it's not on streaming services.
Yeah, I watched it on YouTube. I like rented it on YouTube for like $3 and watched it.
I found mine on an off site. Don't worry about it.
Alex, you're not supposed to say that. This is going on the internet.
Let me ask you this: what do you think of the thing
Like
about
I don't have somebody monitoring my internet already.
So the thing
FBI
about
agent.
My NSA agent. Thank you very much.
Do you know him? Is his name Fred? I feel like
It's
his name's
not Fred. I feel like it would either be George or Tom. Something really simple. I feel like maybe a Tom. I don't know. It has to be somebody boring because I don't do anything other than like sit and watch like Rooster Teeth a lot lately. I don't know why. I'm back very much into their stuff. So it's like he's got to be bored. But sorry, you were saying something, Jerome.
I was saying the thing about Black Dynamite too is that it was a low budget film for real. In fact, that scene in the beginning when he kicks that dude through the wall, Michael Jai White told about that. Apparently, to do that scene, is they had that guy with a rope on him to pull him, and then it was a fake wall, and they had a counterweight like somewhere else, like offset. But they were so far away, and that was the only person to signal Michael Jai White when to kick him. And they only had 2 fake walls. And in the first one, like the first time they did the scene, he screamed, he said something, and Michael Jai White thought he said now, or he couldn't hear him, so he was trying to just get some confirmation, and they just yanked him through the fake wall and destroyed the one of the 2. So they only had 1 fake wall to get it right the second time. And thank God they did, because it came out looking good. So it's like, that was kind of their attitude. But the big thing about Michael Jai White is that he actually is in real life a martial artist. Like he actually knows karate and kung fu. I forget specifically what all the martial arts he knows. He knows a couple. So the action sequences are really him, like doing all of that, all the kicks, punches, everything. And I think that helps make the movie, is that it's not just, yeah, like, yes, there's a lot of good jokes in there, like where they make jokes about the continuity. Like Kim Whitley has that scene in the beginning where she's crying, and then throughout the scene, there's times with the tears on her cheek, and there's other times where it isn't, but it's supposed to be the same scene, and you're like, what is going on? And so it's
and
like
the tears
that's
just sitting there.
Yeah.
I love fake tears in movies. It's just like,
so it's like that stuff's
what
fun.
is it? It's called the one manly tear.
Yeah,
because it's always when male characters cry. Even though your tears come from here, it's always here.
But it's like, that stuff is cool. But I love that Michael Jai White is also like, he knows how to use nunchucks. Like he actually fights with nunchucks and stuff like that. That's the best stuff, for me personally.
And do we want to? Oh,
I was gonna say, Jerome, you mentioned earlier that your favorite character was Bullhorn. Why?
Bullhorn is the epitome of every Blaxploitation character, like especially the way he, like, in the movie, he rhymes like 70, like I almost say 50% of his lines all rhyme together, but not all of them do. In the cartoon, they take it to the next extreme where all of his dialogue rhymes. It's all rhyme schemes, and so it's like, I was like, man, Bullhorn is great because it's just like there's so many Blaxploitation films where that's the cool thing is, like, don't worry, mama. like especially that scene with Black Dynamite where he's like, I'm gonna shake the tree and rake up the fruits. And it's like, what does that even mean?
What about you, Jonathan? Who was your favorite character in the film?
I also did like well, no, probably Tommy Davidson's character. I forget his name.
Cream corn.
Yes,
I was
cream
gonna
corn.
say, yeah,
Yes,
cream corn was my favorite too.
Yes, I love the hair curlers. Tommy Davidson in anything is just always hilarious, and his embodiment of each character he portrays is just like next level. You can tell he's having a great time. You can tell he's committed, and he's just hilarious.
One of the things I remember from the continuity errors were that when he's running away from Black Dynamite out of the barber shop, there's like scenes where he's wearing like heels, but then they turn into flats, and then they're heels again, and then they're flats, and then they're here. And it's so funny because I was like looking at it, I'm like, how's he running in either of those? Because he's also like doing this like weird, like fast paced, but not fast paced because I think the shoes. And I was just like, I love that they just keep trading it in and out. And I didn't know about the continuity thing being part of the Blaxploitation. That took me a second. Was a thing. I just know it was just something with old films that continuity was just terrible. But seeing as that is, that makes a lot more sense of why they kind of almost seem to focus on it too, because I was like, this is a really presentable like continuity error. And now thinking about the whole film, I was like, oh, okay, this makes more sense about why things suddenly flipped. The actor change, yeah, I remember seeing that now, and just stuff like that. I'm like, oh, now it makes sense to what you're saying to what I saw. Yeah. Because like I had previously stated, I had to look up some stuff. I didn't know things because I don't usually watch older films or watch films with a lot of black actors. I won't lie. I either watch Spanish films or American. Well, it is American made film. White people films. Not a correct way to say it. But the main character being white. So it was really nice to like see that, and it was just funny in general too.
Yeah. So before the podcast started, for those who are listening, in my background, I have Little Richard. And before the podcast started, Jerome started laughing to himself, and we're like, Jerome, why are you laughing? And Jerome said that he was laughing because he just noticed that my background, he just realized why my background was Little Richard. And Alex was like, wait, I still don't get it. So Jerome, would you like to explain why my background is Little Richard
it's a reference to
this movie?
That scene in the diner when they're figuring out the Anaconda malt liquor thing, and he's like, it gives you a Little Richard, and what's another name for Richard? I love that they don't even say it. They just look down at their legs and they're just like, oh my god.
I want to get Jonathan, are you making a dick joke?
No, that's Little Richard is just the first person I thought of, or the first image that came to my mind when
right. But that whole part of that joke was that it made small. So technically, you have officially made a dick joke, the first one on the podcast, and it's done by Jonathan.
Little Richard deserves more recognition. Dang it! Okay,
you made the connection,
especially because he died last year. Like, I feel like it came and went that he passed away.
Well, I know no one really talked about it.
So many people.
That's true. In 2020, it wasn't.
I literally told my cat.
That's true. I mean, the death count in 2020 was pretty high.
I literally told my cat, look, you're not allowed to die in 2020 because there's so many deaths. We're not having it. She went in 2021, January 1st.
January 1st.
She's like, all right, fine. I'll hold you to that. And then she's like, oh, well, New Year, I'm out. New Year, dead me.
But I just... I feel like if we ever have like merchandise, that's gonna be a shirt. Is New Year dead me?
That was so funny, but so grim at the same time.
Look, she was a little asshole. She would have wanted it this way, but yeah.
She's looking down right now and she's smiling.
I'm gonna
save. Good job, Alex.
I'm gonna save this moment, and that's gonna be a shirt. like at some point when First Wants to Die takes off, that you're dead man.
What was that inspired by? Oh, Alex losing her cat. Who made that insensitive joke? Alex. Back
But I wanted to ask what you guys thought about the music, because the music also is a huge has a hilarious element of this film, where every song is just describing what is happening on screen.
Honestly, all I could think about was like
funk and soul.
Shaft. All I could think was Shaft.
Yeah,
Because a lot, from what I recall from that movie, a lot of the songs were just about him walking. Every time he got to a new place, it was just about him walking there and getting there. Yeah, and then saying his name. So it just reminded me of
that type of music.
Yeah,
I honestly didn't really notice the music that much while watching the movie.
I honestly just thought of Shaft because I was like, okay. Like I guess that was like a thing for the Black 70s film.
It's just funny, especially like when they're cleaning up the streets and the song comes on like Black Dynamite and his crew. They cleaning up the streets, and it's just like, okay.
Well, I mean,
thanks, Music Man, for explaining what we're literally looking at.
I mean,
but that's that era. That's that era.
That is that 70s era. Like that. But also, it's almost like a musical, you know. Because musicals do that. They often just sing what they're doing or sing their thoughts, you know. So it had that element to it too. I mean, I know it was homage to the 70s, but it was still kind of musical going on because you knew exactly what they were doing at all times.
I will say also. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I will say also the thing too is that I love this movie. While it's funny, it does play really well in its lanes. It like picks its lanes very well. It isn't like all jokes 24/7 365. Like there are moments when Black Dynamite is just a cool black dude macking it to the ladies, and there's no joke there. It's just he's a cool guy, but then the joke sneaks up on you and comes later, and you're like, oh, we're back in it, and we're back in comedy land. Like when he's hanging out with I always forget her name, but his love interest in the movie,
Black Power.
Was that her name?
No, it was the activist of Black Power activist.
Yeah.
Oh, I was about to.
Sorry, no, I was thinking about. No, she was part of an activist group. Gloria.
Yeah, when he's hanging with Gloria, and then they're just walking down the street, just being like, "Yeah, the streets are great, everything's fine." And it's like that's like a nice scene, and then they run into the girls double dutching, and he's just like, "Oh, my mama says my daddy's name is Black Dynamite. My mama said the same thing too." Shut up, hush up, little girls. Plenty of people have that name.
When you were talking about like the serious moments, I thought you meant like the more community one, like when they're cleaning up the streets.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's a serious moment. And then you're talking about the ladies, and I'm like, all right, not the serious moment I was thinking about. Thinking about, you know, when he's rescuing the orphans. That
scene is fun for a little bit until he's like, I'm gonna shake the smack out of your body. And it's a subtle joke, but when she's like, we've already tried that. I'm like, anyway, what, you've already tried shaking drugs out of their system? Because that's not how that works. That's not how any of this works.
I mean, you shake them, they sweat because they're gonna rattle around.
I just watched Requiem for a Dream. That's not how it works. I'm telling you.
Sometimes it helps to sweat it out, you know, 3 days.
I like. The other thing I had a question about is, which I didn't know that you guys have no reference for Blaxploitation films or little reference to Blaxploitation films. But what would you say was like the elements that were really working for you with this, like not knowing anything about this film, not knowing if it was a comedy or whatever, that like made you like it, I guess?
Well, I knew it was a comedy because you told us it was a comedy.
Oh yeah, I did say
before going in. You told us it was a comedy / western. Western.
No, I said
Black Western style.
That. Yeah, because most Blaxploitation films played on the Western tropes because that was what was popular during the 70s. You had a lot of
spaghetti Westerns. Style.
And so black people, when they made the Blaxploitation films, they're like, we're gonna make like our Western. Like our heroes are black dudes who don't care about nothing, who don't care about nobody except they woman and getting their money. That's it.
Not getting a little Richard.
And saving the community. And like that, because Shaft, for example, Shaft is not a cop or Like he's like, I mean, I think he has like ties. I forget because I haven't seen
He's like
Shaft in
a
a long time.
private detective
Yeah,
slash
he's like a
like,
private
bounty
eye.
hunter.
Yeah, and
Slash
it's
bounty
like,
hunter.
Shaft, you're
And
doing
they've
stuff
had
that
two of
FBI
those
agents can do, and you're just and no one's stopping them.
and they've
No
had
one's
two
gonna
of the
stop him.
reboots with Samuel L. Jackson, and I've seen the second.
And
Did I
Jesse
watch
T.
this?
Usher, and
And
the
I
Sam Jackson
Regina
one's
Hall,
cool.
who I've met.
Yes, Jonathan. Hold on, I think you dropped your names back there. Let me just pick those up for you. Make sure.
But for me, I guess I'm more familiar with parodies and references of blaxploitation films than I am with actual blaxploitation films. Like growing up, I've seen so many references to these films, like on TV and sitcoms, especially within like the black sitcoms, when they'll have like an episode or a cutaway where all the characters are, dressed up in their 70s garb, and they're it's the jive turkey, and they're using all that kind of lingo and everything.
Talking jive.
Yeah, so it was very much like kind of what I expected, I guess you could say. Yeah, it's very much in line with what I thought it was going to be, in the fact that I'm watching a parody of a blaxploitation film and not an actual blaxploitation film itself. Well, it is a blaxploitation film, but it's also a parody of one as well.
For me, I was not sure what to expect because you guys had given me some minimal information. And again, I'm not used to watching those films. I found it very entertaining and it was like really like good. But yeah, all I could think about were references like to Shaft or to old SNL skits or Mad TV skits, things where I have seen they have done parodies of, those movies, and things like that. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of aware they're just pretty much grabbing any stereotype, especially the bigger ones, with the chicken and waffles, and bringing it in. And I was like, oh, so it's basically just a movie of stereotypes, which I'm certain that was what the whole 70s black exploitation. I'm still not saying it right. Black. No, you know what? I can't. The exploitation of black people in the 70s was just putting stereotype, which makes sense because I have seen these old movies from like the 1940s to the like I skipped movies from like the 60s and 70s. I was never a fan, but you can see what they were parodying or what they were, the stereotypes they were taking from those even older films, and it's that whole, okay, I'm getting your cultural reference in here. At the same time, I'm getting kind of annoyed because I'm like, what is this stupid stereotype? But then you're right. I had to kind of remind myself it was a parody. It wasn't a direct exploitation of black people films, but it was a parody mocking it. But at the same time, it was just like, I can't handle movies that have too much stereotype. But then Cream Corn, I enjoyed it so much because of him.
He was great.
And those luscious curls.
So I guess overall, is it rating time?
Yeah, this is a short episode. We didn't. We mostly.
Well, we've been going for almost 45 minutes now.
There
really?
is
Yeah.
I've heard there might be a sequel.
Okay. So here's the thing about the sequel. There's no originally everyone thought it was going to be Black Dynamite 2. But now that it's not Black Dynamite 2. It's just the same people. But the new movie is a Western, like an actual Western this time, called The Outlaw Johnny Black.
That sounds kind of racist.
It's starring the same cast, Michael Jai White, Byron Mins. I don't know if all the supporting characters are coming back, like Tommy Davidson and Kim Whitley. I think maybe they because Byron Mins and Michael Jai White are like the two main people that made Black Dynamite, so they're coming back. But I don't know if everybody else is. But it is made in like the same style. It's going to be a parody of westerns, but like a black western, as opposed to just being a straight blaxploitation film. And
so they're just trying to make a western with black people,
more or less. And it's like, but it's still going to be a comedy. And I think they released a trailer, if I'm not mistaken, that you can find on the internet.
I tried looking for it because I saw that they were doing. I But see, here's the thing: when it comes to that sequel, do you think they can do it without
Yeah, there's a
without
trailer.
yeah, without causing such huge, I don't want to say using so many stereotypes?
Well, here's the
Oh,
thing
because
about the about the stereotype thing, because the thing is that, you know, black people, like, because the Blaxploitation films were made by black people, so these are things that black people can at
Inside
that
joke.
time, like, yeah, they considered to be things that were important to them. It's why, like, their heroes were, you know, like Superbad, for example. The main character of that film is a pimp, like, and it's like, a pimp is not something you should aspire to be, but in this movie, he's this pimp that knows kung fu and fights for the right thing, even though in reality, a pimp is like the last thing any black person who's, like, you know, being raised by a good mama and a good dad don't want you to be. But it's, you know, that was kind of their idea of, like, this is our version of an outlaw, is a pimp who fights the man and doesn't let anybody tell him what he is and is not going to do, you know, in his neighborhood. Or Foxy Brown, you know, or Shaft, or all these people who are kind of like these black outlaws, is the way they kind of describe them. And so and they drink malt, some of them drink malt liquor, they hang out at, like, you know, restaurants where they serve, you know, chicken and stuff. And so it's like, for Black Dynamite, it's not so much that it's stereotypes as much as it's just, these are the things that were important in those films, like things that were just hit in all of them, where it's like, oh, everybody's pimps and pushers, and, you know, everyone says jive turkey, afros are big, you know. And then, like, the Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles thing is mostly just a joke on
that's just like,
Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, the thing, mostly because that's a big thing in the black community, where it's like, man,
which
you ain't
I
never
did
been to
have to look up.
Roscoe's? You ain't never been to Roscoe's? Roscoe's is delicious. It's like, I mean, yeah, but I mean, I could just make my own chicken and waffles. I don't need to go
Wait,
specifically to
Alex, have you ever
Roscoe's.
had chicken and waffles?
No,
Oh, it's so good.
We got to get you
It's
on it.
so good.
I'll
You
happily
can IHOP
eat it.
serves
Yeah,
chicken
no
and
problem.
waffles. That's how
Yeah,
good
but
Look,
it is.
I'm not like
Don't go to
arguing
IHOP.
or
don't judge by IHOP standard.
No.
Not to diss IHOP. I mean, if
I
you
love their
go,
chicken fried steak. That's really good there. They season it surprisingly well.
uh,
I have not. No, I'm not opposed to it. I'm willing to eat it. I'm always happy to eat anything.
Another food episode, chicken and waffles. Yeah.
Will you guys eat a salsa that I make?
We already did. Yeah, of course.
You
Remember
ate a salsa.
we tested that salsa you were.
Oh yeah, that's right. My sister and me were working on for a while, which was really fun. We had to.
But, you know, yeah. So that's just what, like, yeah. So it's not so much a stereotype thing. It's just, these are the things that were in Blaxploitation films at the time. So that's what we're going to put in this movie. It,
So the
but
newest one isn't going to be so much of a exploitation film. I really can't say the other word. I try. It's not going to be so much that, but it's more just going to be the Western style. Isn't the Western style though stolen more so from the like samurai movies too? Like the loner comes into town, beats everybody up, and actually that's like every film with a male character. Loner comes in town, beats up whoever, and then gets the girl.
It's weird because Byron Mins looks like he's still gonna have the same like bullhorn voice though in the movie.
Well, I think he needs to have it. That's like him.
So like the Western is still gonna be, I'm Byron Mins and I'm talking about outlaw Johnny Black, and you're just like, this is not Black Dynamite, but you're still gonna be, I guess you're still gonna be a little bit like bullhorn. Well, okay. And you know, so I'm excited for it. I'm excited for a sequel from them. I trust them. It looks like it's going to be made kind of like for the same budget. It doesn't look like it's going to be something like a Zoolander 2, where it's like, all right, well, the first one's funny because you didn't know what you were going to do. You were kind of just, you know, messing around, and now it's like, oh, now we're going to give you like so much budget you can do all the ridiculous things. And it's like, no, the movie's funny because we don't do all of them. We do some of them. And so Black Dynamite looks like it's gonna, like, no, we're gonna make it for our own money. We're gonna make it pretty much for close to the same budget, or at least make it look like it's made for close to the same budget. And I think the reason they're not doing a Black Dynamite 2 is because the cartoon was made. And so
And
it's like,
that
And it
basically.
does.
yeah, Black Dynamite, the cartoon is like a prequel because, of course, if you've seen this movie, Cream Corn's dead, Bullhorn's dead. So but the cartoon, all of them are alive and they go on adventures. And the adventures they get up to in the cartoons are so ridiculous that it's like, how does the movie tie into this? Because the movie is pretty down to earth compared to the cartoon, in which the first episode they fight gangster puppets. Like, it's like if Sesame Street was
Wait.
all pimps and pushers, and literally the puppets are sentient creatures. They're not like people with like with their hands up their butts or whatever. No, they're just puppet people. And then it's like, wait, in the same universe where this movie exists, there's a place where there's puppets, sentient puppet people.
Maybe it's one of those things where it's a different universe, but it's the same. It's
I
the same
know.
world. It's an alternate universe. The
I
cartoon.
think
Yeah.
that would give Rob nightmares. He doesn't like puppets. Since they freak him out.
Nah,
I actually want to make a puppet. Because
I
I
do
used
too.
to I used to
I
have
want
a
a
little,
felt puppet.
I had a lovely the what are they called?
Marionette
It's a
puppet.
marionette puppet. It was a very racist Spanish one. I got it when I was visiting family in New Mexico. My mom's like, sure. My mom is too supportive sometimes. And yeah, it was a really racist Mexican one. And like I got semi good at it, but I have short, chubby fingers. And with that, you need like flexibility and like yeah, I don't have that.
I want a Muppet style puppet of myself.
I want to learn how to make one. I think it'd be awesome. I'm gonna
So
I'm gonna make a puppet now.
I
Um,
I also had one of those marionettes as a kid that I got on
Yeah.
vacation as well in Mexico, and I also, along the lines, I guess we're talking about puppets now, but I also I don't know if I told you guys this story. I'll make it quick. But when I was in um fifth grade, around that time, fifth grade, because we were the older like kids out of the elementary school, the older kids would put on so I went to the private Christian school, and we would put on puppet like shows, and they were like, back in the day, they were like, they felt so high production, but it was just like a stand in front of the thing, and we would go out with the puppets, but the puppets were like high quality. And we at the beginning of the year we chose our puppets and everything, and everyone chose our puppet, and they only had one black boy puppet, and there was another black boy in the class, and
And so you walked
I
over to him and was like, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to leave. There can only be one, and it's me. So you just got to go out
ended
of
up
here.
he ended up getting the puppet. So
oh,
I
I'm
had a
sorry.
white kid. I had a white puppet, and I was disappointed, but
That's
at the time, but
my,
it was
that's
it
my
was
favorite joke in
fun.
Not Another Teen Movie. When that black dude shows up at the party, he's like, "Hey man, I'm the black guy at this party." Oh
Yeah.
damn, my bad. I didn't know that. I'm a bounce. That's my mistake.
Yeah, I remember. I was thinking that scene too. Like, I mean, I'm the token. Like, you can't really do that. Um,
Oh, one last thing about Black Dynamite though that I wanted to ask you guys is, what do you think about the ending of this movie?
well, I did
Because
have a
for
question for
me-
you guys as well, but we'll go with yours first.
Yeah, because the ending of this movie is where I think the parody goes a little too far. Because at first it's like, all right, we're dealing with blaxploitation. Now we're like, the president knows kung fu now, and we're just like going to the White House. Like, I get what you're trying to do, but it feels like you are now going
You didn't
to
like
the
Well,
extreme.
I thought it was in line with how outrageous it was going. It started, at a fair place, then it gradually went up and got more and more outrageous. So I thought that was intentional. So I didn't see any problem with it, but I could see how it's like, really, we gonna get Nixon involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nixon was really he would not react the way he did. Um, he would not take the easy option, which was just that Nixon watch out for his people. So, and it was a little weird, the bondage and the cross dressing.
Although the ghost Abe Lincoln showed up, that made me laugh. I laughed.
I will
out
say that
loud
was
when
great.
Ghost Dave Lincoln just out of nowhere. Ghost Dave Lincoln's just like, oh snap, Black Dynamite needs help. They just
He
goes
was like
back,
literally there and just like bopped Nixon on the head.
and then he sits back down and he disappears.
Yeah, and like neither character acknowledges that like Lincoln just came out of a painting. Like nobody's concerned
That
about
was
him.
hilarious. I was like, oh my god, what the heck is happening?
You know, Nixon actually would have Lincoln would have done that. He used to wrestle. The man was really, really buff. Like he was built.
Well, all men were back then, you know. Men were men back then. Yeah.
Jerome, you're gonna get us canceled. Anyway, Alex, what was your question?
Well, I was gonna say, was there anything you two as black men found like just like insulting or offensive, something that was like, even though you understand, you know, the film is supposed to be this way and anything, did you ever think something went like too far with the stereotype, or was just like, you know, I just rather not have this in any future films, even if they're going to continue anything like Black Dynamite or something of that nature? I mean,
For me, not really, because I felt like because it was so, like over the top, that they were portraying to the audience, okay, please, 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 like, don't take this seriously. um the one thing that I was like, maybe crossed my mind during the movie, now that I'm thinking about it, is like uh the idea of this black man fathering all of these children, and that whole stereotype. But then again, I was just thinking about it like within the context of uh the parody in the movie, and the payoff of the joke, um with the two kids when they were jump roping, and being like, oh, my mom says my daddy's name is Black Dynamite too. And it was funny, so I guess the payoff was worth it,
but
as long as
it would
it's
be in
it's
the future. You'd rather not have that come up again unless the payoff is good enough, like
Well,
that
then
joke,
maybe
because it was funny. Because he's like, "Hey, shut up."
the cartoon
That's right.
takes it to the next extreme where they just, because the whole thing in the movie is that he's quote unquote adopted all these whores that don't have pimps. In the uh cartoon, he has what is known as the whorefinage, which is a whorehouse, but also an orphanage in which orphans and whores stay in the same place, where he takes care of all of them. He takes care of his hoes and he takes care of these orphans, you know, and it's very important to Black Dynamite.
So many things wrong with that statement. Like he is helping these women and their children, but at the same time,
Oh, none of their children are theirs. They're these are just random
these are
orphan
just
kids.
random children he has now picked off the street. That
These are
doesn't.
random orphan kids from the streets that are, yeah, they're random orphan kids that are from the streets.
That's
They're not,
so
none of these kids are
concerning.
theirs. They, you know, and Honeybee takes care of them all.
Honestly, in the end, it just sounds like a brothel.
Well, actually, they mention it a lot. There's a lot of times where they bring up the orphanage concept because they're like, what idiot would would put
Because when you
whores
put
and
the
orphans together? And Black Dynamite is always like, I did, and they were like, never mind. This man can break me in half, and now we're in a cartoon, so he could literally break me in half. I'm not gonna question it. Whatever.
what about you, Jerome? Was there like just a joke or a stereotype, anything that you were like, I just don't want them to bring into like the newer movies if they're gonna continue, if they do make another like the Western black exploitation film, or is it like you kind of have more in the mind that as long as the payoff is good, as long as the joke settles well and the payoff is done more tastefully, like you're cool with it?
It, like, for me, I'm down for, like, especially as a fan of comedy, like comedians and how to tell a joke. I've always been in the realm of, if it's funny and the delivery is like well set up, and I see like, okay, I see what you're doing with the joke and it pays off, I'm down.
And it's not just like an insult or a
Right, it's
slur
not you're
where
trying to be you're just being offensive for the sake of being offensive. In regards, so I'm down, but in regards to this movie specifically, like if white people made this movie, I would feel offended.
Okay.
entirely. But because I know Black people made this movie, and the jokes in here are not so much stereotype for the sake of stereotype because they don't know what else to do, but that they're analyzing a genre and analyzing a period in film where a lot of Black people, for a lot of Black people, this is all they had. Like, these were their heroes as far as like on film. Like, for them, Shaft was Black Panther. Like, that was the closest thing they had to it. It's a predominantly Black like a film made by a Black person, written by a Black person, with a predominantly Black cast, and the hero is this dude who, for all intents and purposes, ain't really struggling or whatever. He's not, maybe he's from the projects, but he's not in the projects. Like, he's a dude who's got his life together. His biggest thing is there's problems going down and I'm gonna fix them, and that's it. And so to see a filmmaker and a writer like go in and kind of make a comedy that both celebrates those tropes but also makes fun of them too, and can have kind of a laugh, and especially because this is coming out during 2009, so at this point Black people can get a higher budget to make bigger and better films and stuff.
It was the year Obama got inaugurated.
Yeah, it's like, so we hadn't hit a point where we were, where Black Panther had come out. Black Panther hadn't come out yet, but at the very least, like, we were like, there was room that maybe at some point we were gonna get there. We were gonna get to movies like Black Panther and stuff like that. So I appreciate this movie. I appreciate them going the full mile to like include those things, because those things are what made Blaxploitation films a staple in Black history, and especially in Black film history.
Do you guys think, with like the way the cancel culture is nowadays and things like that, and kind of that interaction with how much people have control over social media and stuff, and how they can influence things so much more than honestly any of us can really believe at times, do you think a film like this, if it was made in the modern day, because I know TV shows can kind of get away with a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
but do you think if a black exploitation film, I'm sorry, I keep trying but I can't, a black exploitation film like this was made in the here and now, with all these like the stereotypes, everything down to the last detail, do you think it would be a success? Do you think it could survive? Because now that we have stuff like Black Panther and Jordan Peele showing Black people surviving in horror films, basically, do you think something like this would be able to be a success standing next to, let's just say, Jordan Peele and Black Panther, or do you think it would just end up being put on the cancel culture style?
I think there's always a possibility for that. I think it would all depend on how it's marketed, because people like to take things in small bites and small doses and run with it. So if they see a trailer and it's just full of, I don't know, every single the most extreme stereotype that they could find and packed it into the 2 minutes of the trailer, and people watched that and shared it, then that would lead to a lot of outrage and a lot of people being in their feelings. However, if they didn't do that, one of the examples that I was thinking of was like the trailer for the first season of Dear White People on Netflix. If you look on that trailer now, I think there's like the dislike to like ratio is like 10% likes and 90% dislikes.
Really?
Yeah, on the Dear White People season 1, and I remember there were a whole bunch of videos of people just reacting to that and being like, "This is racist. What if there was a Dear Black People?"
Which I said they should make. I think somebody should make the Dear Black People, because I would love to see what white people want to say to Black people.
We already know what they would like to say. They're the President Trump in the world. He's already said everything they needed.
Enough, but I meant in the context of way the Dear White People radio typing. Dear White People established it. They were talking about the system and all that and everything. And if there was a Dear Black people, could they keep that same attachment? It's the same way where I'm always like, yeah, I think we should have a straight pride parade because I think it would be fun. Um, no men can touch without saying no homo. The women can only eat hot dogs. Men cannot eat hot dogs for the whole month. Y'all have to wear shorts in cold weather, so we do need to have that because that's like a bro thing. So it needs to be in like a winter time. So all males have
That's
to
a
wear.
white man bro thing. Black people mostly just wear.
Honestly, how
If
many
black
people-
people could, if it wasn't for the summer, black people would wear long jeans.
Well, think about
every
this.
day.
Often when I hear we need to have a straight pride, it is not from people of color because they understand why there is a pride. So like we do have to, go by some stereotypes and trying to. It's very hard to think of some straight stereotypes. So the shorts thing come to mind. It's always straight males that tend to wear shorts in wintertime. You're right, white ones in basketball shorts. Um, and that whole thing. And I'm like, I think it would be great because then nobody touches anybody. And guys can't eat hot dogs for the whole month.
Especially in Corona times.
Yeah.
That's
the only way to get people to stop going out.
I was gonna say it can be done if it's to this degree. It has to be a comedy. It can't work if it's not taken in jest, because if all of this was to be meant to be taken seriously, A, people would say this is a terrible film, but B, it would be very tone deaf. That being said, though, the Blaxploitation genre is still able to do it, just doesn't sell the same way, because they've done, in recent years, they did a remake of Superbad. That was like more of a modern telling, or a modern version of Superbad, and it was okay. It wasn't like amazing, but it was all right. But it tried to be like a modern Blaxploitation. Taraji P. Henson did Proud Mary, which was kind of like a Blaxploitation, like a female femme fatale Blaxploitation movie. And both those movies, while I think they did make their money back, they were never big hits. Blaxploitation really isn't like the big genre it used to be. But that being said, the movies weren't bad. So I think it just would require like somebody who's really passionate to go in and write something that would be very interesting, but still play on those tropes really well. Some people could probably argue that the Luther TV series starring Idris Elba is kind of plays off modern Blaxploitation ideas.
Is that show still going on?
I don't think so. I think it's ended now.
Yeah, it's ended. Wow.
But a lot of people say that's like a Blaxploitation show. Like, and not literally, but just that it plays off kind of those tropes of the black hero, or the black outlaw. So I would like to see what comes next. Some people have tried, and it's kind of just been mixed results. But I think right now, the way black media and black entertainment is, we're now in the realm of like, more thought-provoking black content seems to be the way to go. Stuff like Atlanta and Insecure, even the
ending sadly.
Yeah, that sort of thing, or stuff like Black Panther, where it's like black people are like, all right, we've gotten the stuff that's low budget, we want high budget. Like, we want to see what y'all can do if like we have a predominantly black cast and it's like this space hopping adventure like Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that, where it's like, what can you do if that's a black cast? Like, how does that movie look? So I think that's where we're kind of at.
So it's kind of changing. It's still tropes that are being filmed, just now it's no longer the black tropes that are being forced in older films. Now they're able to use the tropes because they have the budget for it, like Black Panther and, the daddy issues that every superhero seems to have. You got to have that just like every other superhero, but it wasn't because it was like a black issue and not knowing your father, that fun stereotype there. It was more just because he was a superhero, and that's kind of where he needed his struggle to come from.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's still a trope, and it's still kind of going with the stereotype, but it's no longer connected to that stereotype.
Well, it's more like, it's just like Crazy Rich Asians. I remember when I watched that movie, my complaint was that it was very stereotypical in its depiction. Like, yes, the cast is predominantly Asian, but the roles are still the same. You still have the gay cousin who is like
Very
just there
unnecessary,
to just tell
flamboyant.
some sassy jokes and be friends of the female lead because she's not with her
Right.
family, she's
And I
with the other
remember
family.
seeing or having reading some comments from the test screening, and they were complaining about, I think it was the producers or somebody was complaining about the airplane scene, and everybody during the test screening loved that scene because
Well,
they even said
that's what I was
like,
going to
yeah,
get to. That yeah, that
it
they
was a stereotype, but they hadn't had that for them.
exactly.
So it's just
Exactly.
more so just depending on the tropes that are now introduced with black films makes it really moving forward and kind of avoiding
Mhm.
now the old black exploitation films.
Yeah, and I think that's a point. It's valid, um, because I feel like I'm one of those people who are like, let's see the crossing of the things that we haven't seen before. Like, let's see, like with Crazy Rich Asians, even though we have seen those cliches before, we haven't seen them with Asian people. Let's see, even though we've seen a wizard movie or a fantasy movie 1,000 times before, we haven't seen it with an all black and all Latino cast or anything like that. So
Mhm.
let's let's see visually what we haven't seen before.
Or if we do, or just change up the style, because it's like, oh, if it's a fantasy movie, if you see black people, oh, they're the savage people from the land where they still throw spears and hunt down their animals hand to hand. And it's like, all right, look, just because it's fantasy doesn't mean the black people have to be from an Africa-like region. Like there could be a black swordsman, and that's just his thing, is
Why
that
is
he
it
grew up
always
in Europe and
jungle
he did
too?
yeah, and it's
Like
stuff
the
like
jungle,
that
like
where it's like,
why don't they ever land on a planet that's like a forest? They did that with like Avatar. No, even that was more mimicking a jungle than a forest, really.
but it's like, so I think Black Dynamite, something like a Black Dynamite, is meant to be comedy, but like the Superbad remake, for example, in that, like, original Superbad, he's a pimp, that's his thing, pimp slash drug dealer, that's the hero. In the remake, they were like, okay, if we're doing a more modern thing, maybe being a pimp and drug dealer, first of all, is too easy to get caught by the police, and this guy is supposed to be like really good at what he does. You know what? Let's make it where he's super smart. Yes, he's a drug dealer, but he's not dumb enough to just have cash money. He turns his money into cryptocurrency, and that's how he's rich. And it's like, on one hand, all right, well, people don't really know how crypto works, but that's interesting that your black hero is so smart. He does. So it doesn't matter if you don't know how it works. It's just like, that's something I've never seen before. I've never seen a black person that, like, finances is not an issue for them in a movie. Like, most black characters in movies, their whole, like, most of their motivations is, I got to get this money. And it's like, this character's like, nah, I got plenty of money because I'm smart. I invested. It's like, I figured it out. And it's like, that's new. That's different. I've never seen that before.
So, with that being said, are we now ready to make our final thoughts and
Yeah,
ratings?
ratings. It's fine.
Yes.
Yes. Let's make those ratings.
Okay.
These are good
Alex.
questions. These are good questions, Alex.
Yes, Alex, you can go first.
Um, I would say
Jerome, you can go first.
I was just trying to think of like, well, I did enjoy it. Sometimes it got a little much, like with the opening scene as we spoke. Um, one of the reasons I had always stayed kind of away from like 70s and 60s films is because they really arched into, sexual content. And I'm not too much of a fan of that, just because I think it's kind of unnecessary when you're just throwing it into storyline sometimes, especially like in horror and drama. Like, there's something going on more serious. Do you really need to be having sex right now? Like, there's a man killing people outside, but like, no, this is the perfect time. Um, so that's another reason I do tend to stay away from 60s and 70s film. So that did bring my rating down a bit. I would say like a C plus. I thought it was a very good film. Not knowing much about it, I was still very entertained. Um, again, oh no, corn, cream corn. I just forgot to say is like, I love him, and it was so funny because Tommy Davison, um, plays the dad in the Proud Family. Oscar.
Mhm.
And sometimes I heard that voice when he was talking in the movie, and my mind jumped to the Proud Family. I'm like, Oscar, what are you doing?
That's what I was saying. He has such a distinct
He
voice.
really does. And like, I would go and just start thinking, I'm like, was this Oscar before he met his wife? Like, is this what he was doing? Um,
Prequel.
so yeah, but like a C plus because I did enjoy it. I thought it was funny. It just not my type of movie, however. So that's pretty much the only issue I had with it.
Okay. I'll go next.
Mhm.
I, I had a fine time with it. I laughed at multiple points. It was, enjoyable for the most part. And it was very much like leaning into those black exploitation movie tropes that the ones that I am aware of. And yeah, it was overall a good time. I The reason why I'm giving it this rating is because it is what it is, and it was like it's not one of those movies where I'm gonna be like, oh yes, I need to go back to this. Yes, I'm gonna this movie was sick, it was awesome, whatever. So I'm gonna give it a B. And yeah, I just had a I had a fine time with it. Jerome.
For me, this gets a A plus. Only because for me, it's I like this is why I was interested to hear you guys' opinions. Because it's like, you have a person who's like knows a little bit about the black exploitation genre, and then a person who's never not very well versed in it. And so I was curious to hear what you thought about it. But for me, it's like I know all about that black exploitation era because I'm a huge fan of film, so I've dived into it and heard about it and read about it and watched the movies. And so for me, this movie does an amazing job at parodying that time period, but at the same time, uh, still kind of forging its own continuity, its own kind of reality of this ridiculous like world where, a dude like there's a kung fu island like at the same time where there's just this neighborhood in wherever America. So I like this film a lot. I think it's very funny. I always laugh every time I watch it. I think the writing in it is very sharp, but it also works really well in tandem with the filmmaking, for them to put in the subtle jokes that are just references to how black exploitation films were just filmed versus just like line delivery and stuff. It doesn't always rely on lip service to tell a joke. And I think that's really smart and interesting for a film to do, especially a parody film, because a lot of parody films, that is the only thing they have to rely on is a lot of very witty dialogue. And this movie can tell jokes with just the way it's cut together. And I think that's really cool and interesting. Um, so for me, this movie gets an A plus. For those who are also not well versed in the black exploitation era, by the way, you want some recommendations? I cannot recommend enough. Foxy Brown, Shaft, Super Bad, or
Give the year of the Shaft one you are recommending because remember we talked about
oh
the
yeah,
remakes and
The
everything.
remakes.
Which Shaft are you talking about?
I'm talking original Shaft. Hold on, I'm gonna look up the year right now because I
70
can't
70
remember.
something.
70s Shaft. This is 19. Dang it. See,
Oh, I gotcha.
1971. 1971 Shaft is the best one. Granted, there is sequels to that Shaft movie specifically. There's Shaft's Big Score and Shaft in Africa. Watch the
There is
original.
also a TV series.
There is a TV series as well. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, watch the original Shaft. It's great. The music is great from Isaac Hayes. Superbad's got a soundtrack by Curtis Mayfield. He did the music for that. So all of those are like my three top recommendations to get you started. And then after that, dive into some of the other crazy stuff. Badass, Dolomite, if you like that. Cleopatra Jones. There's a lot of great ones. So
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
There's some recommendations for you. If you have a favorite Blaxploitation film, let us know. You can hit us up on all social media at the first ones to die. You can also email us at firstones2die@gmail.com. If you made it to the end of the episode, go to our social media and spam us with Little Richard in the comments. And that way we'll know that you got to the end of this episode and you know you're riding with us. So
I
with
still
that
stand by that you made a dick joke, Jonathan. Out of
well,
all three of
we're
us,
gonna get spammed by them pretty soon.
out
You're
of
gonna
all
watch.
three of us, it would be you. I did not see that coming.
All right. Well, what you should see coming is that I'm gonna ask you for your social media information. So, Alex, go ahead and hit us with that.
I'm on Instagram, living my okayest life. I also mainly control the TikTok of the first ones to die. So you will see me posting there a lot and just being weird sometimes because it's fun. TikTok's a weird place, man. You get in there and you just get to. Anyway,
All
it's
right,
just
Jerome.
Instagram.
Jerome, how about you?
You can follow me at not Jerome Rhett on Instagram. Still doing January, so check out some of the stuff. And again, I said it already, but I'll say it now. If you are a musician, go ahead and, if you either send some links to us at firstonesdie@gmail.com to some of your music, if you make music, or if not, you want to just take part of January, it's a thing on social media where you just make a song every day in January. I'm not gonna lie, I've skipped a few days, but it's just because I've been busy.
But your newest one, the one you have just put up today, the 23rd, is actually up on our Instagram story right now. So you can go just hear a little bit of it and maybe click on Jerome's link and continue listening to some of his other music.
Yeah,
Saw
so
that, yes.
so that's, thank you, appreciate that. And
course.
also yeah, so that's I would love to listen to whoever's listening to this podcast. I'd love to listen to your music, give it a listen, and if I like it, I'll definitely let you know. If I don't like it, I don't know what I'll say,
He'll
but
still probably let
it will
you
be
know.
positive though. I know that. You know that.
Probably let
I
you
won't
know.
I won't be I won't be negative, I promise. And also trying to get RoboZoo Media at RoboZoo Media on Instagram, get that page up and going. So content will be up there at some point.
Still working on the
keep you
First
updated.
Ones to Die website too, where what would introduce the merch. New Year, Dead Me.
Yep, that'll be the first shirt. You can buy it. I think right now the shirts are our little skull logo, and now this. It's our future logo.
I'm so sorry.
Our future shirts.
What about you?
If only-
getting
Yes.
off of me.
If only we had that merch available January 1st, that would have at the
Nah.
beginning of the
Well,
year.
I mean, I was dealing
What we
with
could do?
on that day.
Oh no!
We could do.
Yes.
We could do a limited edition, right? Like where it's like, we put out the shirt and then we take it away for a while. When it comes back, January 1st, 2022, you can get the New Year Dead Me shirt.
Yes. Yes. All right.
And Jonathan, where can people find you?
Okay, Alex.
I know. This is like,
Yeah.
it's just who I am, and I know this, but sometimes I feel like I go too far. So please, Jonathan, tell us where we can find you.
Okay, I'll move the subject. Yes, you can find me at what is my handle? Jonathan Keys. It's my name. Like, why did I forget that? On Twitter, Instagram, wherever. And we will definitely be having another one of these trivia nights so that Alex or I can have a chance to overtake Jerome as the trivia champion, and we can hopefully share a movie of our own.
Also, but for next episode, it's gonna be ultimate battle. Not really, but it's gonna be villains versus anti-heroes argument. I'm prepared. I got my
But
my notes.
it's not that like one of us is anti-hero, one of us is villain.
No.
It's more just arguing what is an anti-hero and what is a villain. I mean, I come with examples of how you're trying to explain an anti-hero to me and a villain, and like technically there's no such thing as a real villain then.
The argument's based off Maleficent. We'll get into it more next week.
Yes, you will hear how I'm correct.
Yes, and we'll find a way that I can be a part
Chime
of
in
this
there.
conversation.
Pretty much
I have
John
no
is
stake in
going
this.
to be trying to calm us down as he does most of the time when we get into these conversations, and being like, let's focus, guys.
Yes.
Let's not name call either.
All right. With all that being said, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We will see you next Monday for our next episode. And we hope you have a great week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.